Om Shanti, good morning.
Shanti.
Going to look at the idea of being detached from your actions. As I mentioned, always the Gita is to do with karma, and karma simply means action. And the conversation between Krishna and Arjuna involves Krishna telling Arjuna to do certain actions that Arjuna says he cannot do because they're immoral. And Krishna says, well, I'm God, so that overrides morality. And Arjuna says, well, anyway, I still can't do it because you've got to be really sure here. So the whole book is this argument going on. And the thing that Krishna wants Arjuna to do is to kill the people on the other side of the war. And Arjuna says, well, I can't do that because they're my relatives, and you can't kill your relatives because they're your relatives. And Krishna is saying, well, that may be the case, but inside your relatives is the force of evil, and you have to kill the force of evil, no matter what it's contained in. And Krishna says, yes, you're absolutely right. But then he couldn't see the evil. He could only see the container of the evil, which is the relative. And so this was going on and on through the book. And finally, Krishna tells him, look, they're already dead. And because of that, you can just kill them. And that worked. And then he says, okay, I'll do it. So it's quite a complicated situation. And I think also we find ourselves in the face of ethical dilemmas from time to time, where if we do this, it's wrong, and if we don't do it, it's wrong. Or if we do one alternative, it's wrong, and if we do the opposite alternative, it's still wrong. And so then you don't know what to do. The action that has to be taken has to be one where you don't want to get the consequences of it. So we talked initially about neutral karma, pure and neutral karma. More, I was talking about pure karma. A neutral karma is an action that you do that there is no consequences from it. So in the philosophy of karma, when you begin this process of studying about karma, you start in a situation of debt. We're not starting neutral. You start with debt. Say, in this life, when you come in, the assumption is that you've come in from a bunch of other lives. You don't know how many. You can never tell. But when you get born in this life, you get born to some particular parents. So that's already a karmic account with them. You have some particular brothers and sisters, so you have a karmic account with them. And as you move through life, you experience different sorts of rewards and punishments, as it were. This is why this question arises, why do bad things happen to good people? we're all basically good people, but sometimes bad things happen to us. And so in terms of the philosophy of karma, it would be said that if a bad thing is happening, then this is some sort of karmic consequence of something. And so therefore you have to accept it. So the question of acceptance comes up. And when we practice the quality of acceptance, it is quite beneficial for us, because it means that we do not incur further negative karma by not accepting and by fighting against the bad thing that is there. So acceptance is one of the ways in which you limit the negative consequences of negative karma. How we sometimes amplify the negative consequences is we bring into the equation our moral indignation, and we say, this, what is happening, is not fair. It's unjust, and therefore we will do something about it to equalize it. The idea of acceptance assumes that it may look unjust from the superficial angle, but it may well be just, because there may well be some settlement of karma going on. And so to take the attitude of acceptance, that it is just, means that when you don't accept it and you say it's not just, then you do something which actually makes the account more expensive. When you do accept, you say, okay, let it be, I accept, I'm not going to add to it. So there's that angle that people do apply. So when you're looking at any bad things that have happened to you at any time, it's a good idea to look at it with a sensitivity within yourself that, is this something, I'm paying for? We have this expression, what did I do to deserve this? And when that question arises, it assumes on some subconscious level that we know that nothing can happen unless I deserve it. So we say, what did I do to deserve this? I cannot think of anything. Because it might have been from another lifetime, which you don't remember. So when you're looking at it in terms of this sensitivity feeling, did I do something so that this is there? And the answer may come intuitively, yes, I feel that I am settling some account. So then you would say, okay, then what I have to do is accept. This is very subjective. Nobody else but you can feel this. Or you may have a different feeling, and you may say, no, this doesn't feel as if I am paying for something. This is something else. In that case, we would say, this is not payment, this is not punishment for something I did, this is a test. So a bad thing comes, you recognize this is not me settling anything, this is a test. That means the way you handle a test is different from the way you handle a debt. A debt you have to pay. A test you have to pass. Paying for something and passing something is different. Now, what I always recommend to people, because a lot of the time you just cannot tell whether I'm paying a debt or I'm taking a test. So I always say, and to my own self, I say, well, we're going to consider it a test and handle it that way. The reason I do this is because I think it puts you much more into your own power when you consider it as a test. When you're paying, there's a little bit of guilt or something like this. And in some cultures, the religious background of people is such that people are pretty much predisposed and programmed to feel guilty about all sorts of things. And to people like that, I always say, if you really, really, really did something bad, then you can allow yourself to feel guilty for 1 second. Not more than that. It's enough. Because the purpose of feeling guilty is a very deep internal experience that says to you, I shouldn't do that. And it only takes 1 second to get it. So we only need 1 second's worth of guilt. Do you think? Some people, they go on and on and on. And it actually drains your energy, which is not good. And there are many people who feel guilty because they're privileged. They try to kind of bring down their situation because they feel, I have all this, but I don't really deserve this, so I feel guilty. And from karmic law angle, you don't feel guilty for that because you didn't do anything wrong. This is your reward for something good that you did. So there's no point feeling guilty for doing good things. But what you do when you have abundance more than everybody else, it gives you the possibility to share. It gives you the possibility to reinvest your positive karmic energy and do more pure karma. Because in this world, nobody is equal. Some have heavy debt, some have heavy profit. Everybody is endowed differently with intelligence, with potential, with possibilities. Why is that? Every single soul has a sort of number. It can denote a kind of ranking in the world of humanity. Are you an old soul, a powerful soul, a new soul, a special soul, an ordinary soul, a charitable soul? Who are you? Because there are some people who have a gigantic influence in the world, which is very positive. There are some people who are famously infamous, a lot of negative influence in the world. Some people are like nothing. Not particularly good, not particularly bad, not at all memorable. They're there, passing by, nobody knows about them, they don't do anything particular. So everybody's different. And at this time, in historical period, all souls are depleted, spiritually depleted. And so whatever is your potential is pretty much hidden. So everybody looks pretty much the same. Once you start to face your different challenges, this is where the difference starts to show. So the greatness of a soul becomes clear in how they handle their challenges and how they use the opportunities that are given to them in the present moment. And so this then becomes a very important attribute in the question of understanding who am I and what am I, and then what am I going to do? Because these are the two questions: who am I? And in that case, how will I conduct myself? Now, this particular aspect of karma has to do with not looking for the consequences of karma. And this is one of the very important teachings of the Gita, which you do not find in any other scriptures. Mostly you hear about that you get good result for your good actions and bad result from your bad actions, and that's about the end of the story. In the Gita, it says you must strive to be neutral. So if you think of yourself as having come in with a debt from a certain number of lives, then you need to perform pure karma, partly to bring the debt to zero. And then, when you've brought your debt to zero, you're still around, you still have to do karma. So then you start to do karma which will put you in a lot of profit. When you do pure karma to settle a debt, we call that pure karma. When you do pure karma and you have no debt to settle, we call that neutral karma, because it's extra. So this is just the terminology that is used here. When you do a pure karma, the normal thing that's going on in a person is you're looking for the reward. Say, for example, you make a contract with somebody. I will do this, and I will get paid this much, which is commensurate with the work that you do. You do the work, you get the money. And if you get less than what the contract says, or you don't get paid, then you go after them, because they didn't pay, and they had to. You see. So it's an energy to get the reward that's commensurate with what you did. In relationships of love, which is an unwritten contract, you want to keep the karma balanced between the parties. I love you, you love me. I love you, you love me. So love is doing something good for the other one, and then the other one needs to repay that to keep the karma to a balanced level, right? And there's a law in the philosophy of karma that says that the balance cannot tip too far one way or the other. So you may have sometimes experienced in any close relationship of love that you're doing more than your share, and the other one is doing less than their share. Have you experienced this? It very often happens like that. So in a situation like that, something will block you from doing any more beyond a certain limit, and you just find yourself unable to carry on doing when the other one doesn't give back. So this sort of tipping point exists. So this is how the law of karma operates in most significant loving relationships. And because of that, there are many scriptures which actually prescribe as a wife, you have to do like this. As a husband, you have to do like this. And if the wife and the husband both do all the things they're supposed to do, then the relationship will stay in balance. Because many people are just unable to be adequately sensitive to do it by their own intuition or their own conscience. So you get these moral injunctions that are created by the sort of religious and philosophical leaders in any community, and that becomes part of your scriptures people follow. Now, in the Gita, it goes a little differently from what you have in the regular moral injunctions, because the moral injunctions do not look at men and women equally. So what they did is, in order to keep the peace, they said if there's an argument between the husband and the wife, the husband's always right. And if we do it that way, we'll have peace. And maybe that worked for a little bit, but it's certainly not working anymore. So we find that, the history of karma between humanity, between the different humans throughout history, has reached a point where people's idea about right and wrong has become so dysfunctional that we have to basically throw it away and start again. So the Gita is a very, very interesting set of ideas that actually enable you to start again. If not collectively, then at least individually. So, when you do a good action without looking for its reward, what happens? When you do not get the reward that you anticipate, it produces certain emotion, a negative emotion. And these negative emotions cause the person or drive the person to take revenge or something like this. So the whole subject of revenge comes up. Revenge, or in law, your spouse gets murdered. You go after the murderer and you want him or her to get suitable punishment, and the law goes through that process and does that, and then it is said that you have closure because you got your revenge. You would know about things like that. And it's like this energy, very, very strong energy in our current society to get this closure. And what the Gita is saying is, actually you don't really get closure, because the complications of karma are such that you need to look at it very differently. And what you need to bring into it is the impact of yoga. So when we're sitting in silence, that's the beginnings of yoga. And when you sit in a lot of silence, things come up. Have you seen that? Things come up. Unresolved issues come up. They float around in your mind. And these are issues that begin to cause different emotions to drive you to get a resolution to these unresolved issues, which are sometimes very complicated. So the function of yoga, the purpose of yoga, is to acquire spiritual power to neutralize those emotions that are raised by being aware of unresolved issues, so that you resolve them not by taking revenge, but by becoming neutral about them. And in the practice that we do in the Brahma Kumaris, we have a list of powers that we try to cultivate and develop and first of all understand. And one of them is endurance. One of the things we have to deal with is pain. Could be pain in the heart, could be financial pain, social pain, many different types of pain that a person experiences or encounters. And in our culture, we generally think of pain as being a bad thing. And if somebody is giving us a lot of grief, it's quite difficult over a long period of time not to take that on. You take it in, and it drags you down, because you begin to doubt yourself and think, well, maybe these people are right, because there's only one of me getting grief and there's a whole bunch of them giving me grief. You know? Or somebody may be acting in a very negative way out of jealousy. Jealousy is a very powerful emotion, which is highly destructive. It was described in Shakespeare's Othello and many other descriptions of it. Professional jealousy, you may have encountered that. So what do you do when there's this negative energy that has nothing to do with you being bad, but it's everything to do with you being good, too good? And when you're too good, other people don't like it. And they want to take you down or take you out or whatever. Because people who are weak cannot bear to see somebody else being successful, or being good, or being higher. So you have tall poppy syndrome. I don't know if you know about this. It's an Australian characteristic. Anybody who starts, shining and standing up above the rest, they cut them down. Mm-hmm. Or in Asia, they have something called crab mentality. Crab mentality. Anybody who starts, pull them down. Rather than try and rise to be with the person who's rising, they cut them down, pull them down, take them out, whatever it is, but we don't want anybody to excel. Have you experienced that? Yeah. So for this, you need power, because if you're going to be a yogi, if you're going to be spiritually empowered, then all sorts of good things are going to happen to you, and people are going to say, we don't like this guy, we're going to take him out. So sometimes they will do black magic. Have you heard about black magic? Mm-hmm. It's real. Mm-hmm. And so you need to be able to neutralize that stuff too, because it's using spiritual power in a very, very negative way. But if you're very pure and very clean and very unafraid, you can be immune to it. Somebody comes along to try and assassinate you. Character assassination is a very favorite one, And stories are invented and they're passed around, and they take on a life of their own, and whatever you say to defend yourself, it doesn't fly. So you need these powers to accommodate all this, to endure all this, and the power to stay in your self-honor and not get dragged down by that stuff. And so this practice of doing pure action without expecting any return, definitely without expecting a negative return for a pure action, this is something that gives you a very good edge in those kinds of situations, which is very, very worth having. And so it's all about kind of pulling yourself. One of the powers that we talk about is the power of withdrawal. The power of withdrawal doesn't mean that you run away, but it means that you pull yourself into yourself so that you're not kind of open and available for anyone to chop you into mincemeat. But you're internalized in yourself. You're like you make yourself into an impregnable fortress, but you're still around in the middle of everything and everyone. But they can't get to you because you're not open to it. You're not vulnerable to it because you just do what needs to be done and you really don't care. People like it, don't like it, they're jealous, not jealous, whatever it is. And it's quite a powerful position to adopt in that kind of an environment. There are other types of situations which are circumstantial. It's not that some people are trying to take you out, but circumstances really, really go against you. Have you experienced that? You can't identify somebody, but it's just like everything that can possibly go against you goes against you. And you may be tempted to say, what did I do to deserve this? And when we start questioning ourselves like that, we maybe make ourselves weak in the face of these obstacles. But it is said in spiritual practice that if you want to do something good, be prepared for trouble. And I often tell people, it's much more expensive to do good action than to do bad action. So you want to do something good, you want to fulfill your potential, but everything goes against you. How do you interpret that? You say, okay, I am interested in doing the right action just only because it's right, not for anything. And what this will do, this sort of reactive nature of circumstances to just stop you from getting anything at all, is it will cause you to have to deal with your capacity to get depressed about things, which we all have that capacity. It's a reaction that nothing's working, so I'm going to get depressed about it. Sometimes it takes a lot longer to break through than we anticipated, and so then we may be tempted to give up. But this practice helps. No, I will not give up. I will just do it. I will keep doing it because this is what has to be done. And you start actually losing sight of the reward that you're looking for, and you get more focused on doing the right thing purely because it's the right thing, and you're making yourself the very best self that you can be in every which way, and you're also accumulating power. And one of the things that will do is it will cause you to somehow move through a glass ceiling. Sometimes I look at our life as lots of people walking around in a pyramid with different platforms. So you're on a platform with other people of your kind, and you do whatever you do with those people, and maybe all of a sudden you find yourself in a situation where all those people are doing fine and you're not. Everything is going against you, so you just have to really do something, but there's a gap between you and the other people because it's not working for you. So you do many, many good things, and you face many, many unreasonable difficulties. And all of a sudden, something happens and you're kind of moved to another level. I don't know if you've experienced something like this. So then all of a sudden you're not on the same platform with those other people, you're on a different platform. It's a different landscape, there's different people. And this is actually where you need to be. And all these difficulties and the way that you handle it by doing the right thing without expecting any result, this is the karma that puts you where you need to be on this other level. You remember there was a question yesterday that came up to Didi Sudesh about how difficulties take you to where you need to be. And she talked about it in a different way, but in this way, it's all about getting up to another platform, to be operating on a different level with different people, different purpose, different function in the great scheme of things. So Raj Yoga, which is what the Gita is all about, is a yoga that enables you to be the independent sovereign of your life. And that is leadership. A sovereign is a leader. And a leader is always alone. So we're also looking at how does a person operate when they are embracing the reality of their solitude. You may be having all kinds of relationships with different people, but behind all of that, there's your relationship with yourself, where you are in your solitude. And that's a very important place to be, place to occupy. Because that really prepares you for your final exam. Your final exam is you leave your body. And even if you're in a plane crash and all the other people are dying too, but you still die alone. Mm-hmm. So it kind of brings you again and again to yourself, who you are and what you are, vis-a-vis your own self. So you do all this good karma without looking for the reward. And you get stronger and stronger, more and more of a, you know the caduceus? Caduceus is a symbol of medicine. So the cross, a little round thing on top and two snakes coming up and some wings. So this is this is our symbol. The two snakes are spiritual energies. It's ultimate healing. You need to raise that energy. One is just the force of evil, one snake, because an independent sovereign has to be able to take out the force of evil. That's our fundamental function. Force of evil means any kind of negative energy that's affecting anybody else negatively. The sovereign takes that out because the sovereign has to take care not only yourself but other people as well. Otherwise you're not a sovereign. Protect the people. So you have that one snake. And the other snake is your own negative karma. which also limits you. So you have to transcend that. These wings are obviously about flight, and flight is to do with transcending the what's known as the human condition. And the human condition is to be subject to temptation, subject to vices, subject to weakness, subject to all the various things that make us do the wrong thing. When you have done this type of karma, where you're not concerned with the result, and if you don't get any results, you don't get depressed, you're absolutely neutral. So you do this, it creates this power that allows you to transcend and be above. So one of the practices that's really good to do in all of this is to approach circumstances from the angle of a detached observer, a witness. You just look at everything. It's not good, it's not bad, it just is. It's a very neutral place. And then you call upon your inner power and you apply whatever action is the right thing to do in that circumstance to shift it from stuck to flowing, from harmful to neutral, or even to something that results in something really very good. So what you're doing with all of this is accumulating and consolidating inner power. One of the things that you find in the social, professional environment is people are driven by the desire for power. And desire for power is a very corrupting influence. And a person who wants power, they will stop at nothing to get it. A lot of the world's politicians are such, because when you have political power, you like that. And sometimes people are said to be drunk with power. You have power over somebody else's life, it's addictive, highly addictive. And a lot of really bad things get done by someone who's got power and they really don't know how to work with it. They really don't know how to handle it. And there are lots of stories of tyrants like that. Again, in Shakespeare, you've got one play, I forgot its name for a moment, which is totally about tyranny. Now, a yogi, a person who is striving to work with karma to achieve purity, basically, is going to be picking up a great deal of power along the way. And when you really experience yourself as a powerful soul, you do not need to look for power. You're already powerful. And a person who is becoming powerful needs to know very well how to handle power. Because power comes to you, then you need to know what to do with it. And because power, they say power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. So it's a dangerous item. But if you're very neutral and you're very focused on being right with yourself, let alone right with God, right with everybody else, but right with yourself, and you pass through many, many obstacles, this gives you the possibility to hold power and to use it for benefit. You don't need it for yourself because you're already powerful. You're already okay. You're already neutral. You don't need anything. You become desireless. So you do action for benefit. And cause circumstances to become better all around. This is really the goal of learning these things. Of course, knowing the laws of karma, you know that it's going to be reinvesting your profits so that you anyway are becoming more and more wealthy in terms of your spiritual energy, your wealth of character, and circumstances tend to become more and more favorable to you. And then when it comes to your last exam, which is when you leave the body, leaving the body means giving up all your attachments. People, places, things. This state that happens in you is a state of kind of deep satisfaction. You know that whatever you did in your life was the best that you could do, so you can let go. You know that you loved everyone in your life correctly. You didn't go into debt to them, you didn't put them in debt to you, you loved them correctly. You can let them go. You may have intense feelings of love, but you also have the power of detachment, and so you can let them go. And then you can allow yourself to just merge into stillness, because you will have finished off the false ego. And the false ego gets eroded by this practice of doing the right thing without expecting any results. Because the negative things that you keep dealing with, as you become more and more powerful by dealing with them, this is what erodes the ego. And the ego and desire are very connected. If you have a desire, it means you're empty in some area, so you want to be filled. When you're doing all of this karma without looking for results, you are actually filling yourself in all the different corners, in every different area of your being. And therefore this substitute for emptiness fritters away. So you become like a neutral person, very experienced, very strong, very competent, very knowledgeable, very neutral. About yourself, about everyone. It's a very, very good place to be. And this we call independent self-sovereignty. So this is a lovely, lovely state to be in. And this is really what we're aiming for in this practice. So, as you go into silence, you will again be doing some journaling later on. Take a look at your own personal power. To what extent am I in my power? Look at what's still missing in your life. Look at your achievements. Even look at your disappointments, if you have become neutral about your disappointments, because that's also a very good thing. There are some things that you have no control over. Just look and see that if you know that you don't have any control over it, let it go. There's nothing you can do. Let it be. We need to know the difference between the things we can change and the things we can't change, as is mentioned in the serenity prayer that you might well know. And just really be with yourself and see, how am I with me? And check your power, your inner power, and think about ways in which to do things just because it's a good thing to do. Appreciated, not appreciated, good result, bad result, whatever, you don't mind. So we'll have a few minutes of meditation now together. So start with feeling all the energy in your body. Each and every one of us has our own harmonic, like a tone on the music scale, which is specific to ourselves. As you go into silence, you gradually come closer to that, tuning yourself. And you bring the energy of your being to a single point in the place of your third eye. And just feel yourself. Feel your light and your power. All the different faculties of your being, your mind, your heart, your understanding, your specialities, your persona, all merged in a point of light. Practice to detach yourself from the everyday things that occupy your mind. And go to that place of stillness. Let yourself fly above and see your world from a distance. All the things of your life are spread below you, and you are soaring like an eagle above, just experiencing yourself. Your attention on your own being. The warm sunlight of the divine on your outspread wings. And you absorb spiritual energy into yourself. You gently reconnect yourself with the here and now.